Welcome back to the channel. I'm joined by Henry Wright. Loads to talk about today. Arsenal 6 points clear. Man United sack Ruben Amorim. Chelsea appoint Liam Rosenior after the sacking of Enzo Maresca. Injury crisis at Manchester City as well. But can they and will they spend their way out of trouble this month? Like the video if you haven't done so already. Subscribe, share it across your social media platforms. Hit the hype button as well. Mr. Wright, how are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. It's very, very cold. I'm trying to get over a cold. But midweek football is back. Good weekend. Lots of drama. Plenty of sackings. And just hopefully we see one more sacking tomorrow night. And then, I can be happy in the football world. I'll be honest with you, it is shambles being a Spurs fan at the moment. Absolute shambles. Playing for a draw, time wasting against Brentford, and then time wasting against Sunderland is, I mean, you should be happy. You should be like somewhat optimistic about what's going to happen in the summer. Maybe not now, but in the summer. Chelsea the same. Us, however, Jesus.
Well, yeah and no. I mean, I'm happy. I'm happy that Amorim's gone because it was the right decision. He hasn't been. There's a lot of Man United fans doing up this whole. He hasn't been sacked for performances. I think that's a reductionist take. I think that performances, a lack of adaptation, a lack of wins. There's been a real opportunity presented this season with Newcastle, Chelsea, and Liverpool respectively being nowhere near the level we all expected. So a doorway has been opened that none of us expected. And if I think of the Everton game, the West Ham game, the Wolves game at home, the Bournemouth game at home, just to name four, bad in-game decisions, a lack of adaptation to the system, terrible instructions, bad substitutions really cost us. Of course, individual players messed up in the games as well. So there's been a growing tension at United. Then he was told no for the money being reallocated in January. Again, we've got, whether I agree with that or not depends on what comes out in the wash. A lot of United fans are saying, well, he wanted Conor Gallagher. They've said no, and they've fallen out. Now, for me, I back Ineos on this. I don't want to waste £25 million on Gallagher. I don't want to waste 35, 40, 50 million pound on Gallagher, including wages and agent fees, signing on fees, bonuses, because I don't think he moves the needle. I don't think we become that much of a better team. Where I agree with Amorim is take the 65 million that we didn't get, that we were willing to spend on Semenyo, and knock on that door at Brighton and try and get it done. But if we can't get a top target in, I don't want to spend the money. We've made that mistake before. But it's right that he goes. You can't speak about your employers that way and expect to keep your job. You can't fall out with them in that way and maintain your job, because it's going to become toxic and it's going to get worse. So I think for a lot of United fans, there's a lot of polarization and a lot of reductionism going on, where we're trying to boil things down to one incident or one problem, where I think it's a little more complicated than that. But overall, with the fallout with the ownership, the outbursts, and the progressive issues with the way we play, it's correct he goes. That being said, Henry, I have almost zero faith that Ineos are going to hire the right manager. I have limited belief that we're going to build an elite squad. So in terms of feeling bright about the future, I'm at this point, and this is very hard for Standard FC to get their head around, because they're quite slow, because they're a little bit dense, because they're a little, you know what I mean, they struggle to count to 20 unless they're wearing sandals or in bare feet. They need all the digits. That's true. They do. They really struggle. I look at it this way. My standards towards Ineos, the Glazers, their owners, is always going to remain high. With what we spend on transfers or what we spend on salary, I expect them to build us a team capable of winning the league, capable of being in the conversation to win the Champions League at a bare minimum. I expect all our owners to get us there with what we spend. But when I look at this squad, if the squad doesn't overly get better, if we go and hire a manager that I think is good but not world class, I'm no longer going to put a huge amount of pressure on that squad and and manager.
Target for a manager.
Mine right now, honestly, De Zerbi. And what I mean by that, that's realistic top target. I'd love us to go and get Diego Simeone. Sorry?
Would you say Unai Emery?
No, I personally wouldn't know. I feel he would crumble under the pressure at Man United. By the way, I think De Zerbi might crumble under the pressure. I don't have faith it's going to work. But with De Zerbi, and this is where I'm getting to with Man United. So again, my standards against the owners are high, but my expectation of the reality of what any manager is going to inherit, give us some nice football, please. At least let us enjoy failing, as opposed to, like, Unai Emery will play boring football, in my opinion. We won't enjoy it. We'll foul anyway, because every manager's fouled, but we'll be bored along the way. At least have a little bit of fun. And I feel that that's the bit for me that's hard. Now, I hope I'm wrong. And I hope that we bring in, I don't care who the next manager is, when in this point I'm making. I hope we hire the next manager. I hope we play good football. I hope the fans are behind it. I hope we improve. I hope in the summer we bring in Baliba and Adam Wharton and an experienced striker, and we go to the next level. The following year, we go up a level. We're challenging for the league. I hope that all happens, and I can go, I was wrong for doubting it. But in my heart of hearts right now, Amorim being sacked is correct. But I almost don't care who the next manager is, because I don't think they're going to be successful. So in that world, in that reality I'm living in, at least give me entertaining football. At the very least, make it entertaining, because I don't believe that we're going to build an elite squad that can win the league. I'll always put the pressure on the owners to do that. But in the reality, and this is where some Man United fans struggle. They're like, what do you mean the reality of what we're in? The reality is we've got to push for things to be better. By doing what? Unless you're willing to do what I did, and that is give up your season tickets. It took me 10 years to get. Not spend a penny on the club, boycott unless you're willing to do what I do. What else? Don't tell me protest. Don't tell me strongly worded letters. And by the way, I respect all Man United fans. If you want to go to games, respect. If you don't go to games, respect. But until Man United fans are willing to boycott the club financially, we're never getting rid of these owners. Why would they? Why would they sell now? Unless we force them out, unless we crash the value of the club. It's not going to happen. And I've been saying that for a decade, and nobody wants to listen. So I'm sick and tired of talking about it. I don't want to hear about your bullshit standards. I don't want to hear about, what we should do to get them out, or we have to keep pushing, because you're not willing to do anything tangible. All you're willing to do is moan. So for me, I'll always put the pressure on the owners consistently, but I don't believe we're going to build an elite squad. I don't believe we're going to become an amazing team again. So at the very least, give me a manager that can play entertaining football. At least I can enjoy it, win, lose or draw, as opposed to being bored stiff for most 90 minutes every week.
Well, that's exactly what it's like being a Spurs fan. It's like exactly the same. I'm at the point now where it's more about, I'd rather watch 90 minutes of good, fluid football where we can go, do you know what? We've had a go today. And I think a lot of fans, I think Chelsea fans are like that. I think West Ham fans are like that. I think a lot of teams this season have massively underperformed. And we're now at a point where the on-pitch matters a hell of a lot more important than the actual overall football club. You know, right now, I mean, being a Man United and Spurs fan the last 2 or 3 years, other than that Europa League and other than the FA Cup you've won, has been absolute shambles. It has been piss poor on and off the pitch, and now Chelsea are falling into that rut. I think I see the teams around Chelsea win this weekend and they don't win. I think they could be down in 8th or 9th. I think they could go as low as, if the results go against them, they could be as low as 8th.
And look, I agree. And as I say, like, I hope I'm wrong. I hope my pessimism, I hope my negativity, I hope my frustration bears no fruit. I hope the plan is working. And what I really do hope is the Amorim outers and the manager outers. And when I categorize them as outers, it's the people that think the manager's the biggest problem with our progression and where we are. I actually hope they're right. And I've always hoped they're right, even though they've been wrong about every manager so far. And what I mean by that is they're not wrong in wanting the manager gone, but it's what they believe hiring a new coach could do for this team, squad and club in the medium to long term. They've been wrong about that every time, the outers, the staunch outers that put most of the blame on the manager. But I hope they're right. And you know what? For Chelsea fans' sake, moving on from Man United, for Chelsea fans' sake, I hope they're right. I hope for their sake that Liam Rosenior comes in, is a genius, makes better decisions in terms of starting lineups, in-game management, that their win percentage goes up, Chelsea grow, and then they go and buy some better quality players and some more experience in the summer, and they go on and challenge for the league title. As a footballing person, when I drop all rivalry, I hope that happens. But I look at both clubs, and you can't ignore the fact that although there's some really good players that Chelsea have purchased. Man United have bought some really good players. You can't look at the fact, and there's something a Chelsea fan said a week ago, which was Chelsea love keeping the club 1 year away from being 1 year away. And I can't get that phrase out of my mind. And I think about Man United. It always feels like whenever you feel like you're really progressing, something happens in a transfer window or falling out with the board, a window where you should buy and you don't. Something always seems to happen that knocks you back. And there comes a point where when that happens 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, when it happens with one manager, two manager, three manager, four managers, I look beyond the coaches. I even look beyond the squad, and you have to look at the ownership. And that's the thing with I look at Liam Rosenior. Part of me really wants him to do well. But if I'm being honest, I look at that Chelsea appointment and I can't help but think, and I'd love to get your take on this, I just can't help but look at it and think they've given him a 6-year deal. I don't know if he lasts 6 months.
Bang on. I agree. I think it's a panic situation at Chelsea. I think they've seen a manager at Strasbourg who's obviously owned by, the Chelsea owners. I think that is a ticking time bomb. I think it doesn't work out, just my opinion. I think he's going to be very much a yes man. He's going to be controlled massively by the board. I think he's probably seen what Enzo Maresca has done in his press conference and think, okay, that's exactly what I don't need to do. Does this Chelsea team get much better under this new manager? For me, maybe they get a new manager bounce. They win a few games in a row. They have got some difficult fixtures coming their way. They've got to play Arsenal home and away in the Cup. They've got to play Fulham away this weekend. They've got Napoli in the Champions League. It's not an easy run. And if he doesn't hit the ground running, the dagger's going to be out for him, because already Chelsea fans are saying this is unacceptable. But have you seen what the Strasbourg fans have been saying? They're more unhappy than Chelsea fans. So that just tells you everything you need to know about this Clear Lake Blue Co project.
Let's read this out here. This is a statement from Strasbourg Supporters Federation. They said the transfer of Liam Rosenior marked another humiliating step in the racing's subserviency to Chelsea. With for 2.5 years, along with others, we have been trying to raise the alarm about this. The problem goes far beyond the mid-season sporting impact and the ambitions of a young coach. It is structural. The future of the French club football is at stake. Every additional contortion by Mark Keller, every extra minute spent on the helm at the club, is an insult to the tremendous work accomplished before 2023. What was seen by many as an outrageous move last September increasingly looks more like sound advice. He must leave now. The RCS, I don't know what that is. I think that's the Strasbourg Supporters Foundation, closely with the three other associations actively fighting against multiple ownership, as well as all people of goodwill, to define the next steps. And I have to say, I'd love to get your take on this. Some Chelsea fans don't seem to care, but Strasbourg supporters are absolutely exasperated at the fact that they'll sign a top player, but yet if Chelsea want him, he'll go there. They've got a coach that they're enjoying, who's doing a good job there, and Chelsea have just got him. There's no way of fighting them off. They feel as though that they're never going to reach their full potential, because anytime they get something good, that player will be given, that manager will be given, that coach will be given to Chelsea Football Club. And do you think this is a big problem with multi-club ownership?
Yeah, I do, to be honest with you. I do. I can kind of sympathise with the Strasbourg fans. Tottenham are actually one of the first kind of clubs to be we owned like part of Rangers, AEK Athens, Slavia Prague, and then the rules changed. And now the rules, if they were back 20 years ago, would suit Tottenham to a T. But I don't agree with it. I strongly disagree. I think it's very, very harsh. If Strasbourg get an unbelievable academy graduate who's, the best thing to come out of France since Kylian Mbappe, does really, really well, scores lots of goals, makes his debut in the French national team, all of a sudden Chelsea can go, right, okay, we're going to buy him at a cut price and he's going to come and play for us. And in that statement, what they said is, we're never going to reach our full potential. It's bang on the money. But this has been happening for years. The Red Bull Group have been doing this for years. They'll buy a player, send him to Austria, he'll play in Salzburg, he'll have 2 or 3 good years, and then he'll go and play for Leipzig. And then Leipzig will send him to either Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, or a Premier League team. Like it happened with I think it happened with Erling Haaland. You know, RB Leipzig wanted to buy him, and then Salzburg bought him off of is it Mulder? I think it's Mulder, the Norwegian team, and then Dortmund conveniently bought him on from Salzburg, which was negotiated through Leipzig, and then Man City bought him. So it's got to be extremely frustrating. I would not be happy if I was a Strasbourg fan to know that our best talent is always going to go to Chelsea, essentially. But from a Chelsea perspective, if you're a Chelsea fan, there's lots of perks because you can buy young players. You haven't necessarily got to put them into your team. You put them into another league and they can develop. But to answer your question, mate, I don't think it's, you know, they must, unless they bring a rule in to say that it's a multi-club, but you can't go to a parent club. So, for instance, like what Man City do, they own like Mumbai City, New York City, and all, or the Melbourne and all that. But you rarely see a player go straight to Man City. Like Man City have done it with Girona, but
yeah. But this is the problem with it, right? So if you look at that example, so if I get this slightly wrong, someone can tell me. They spent 25 million euros, City, on Savinho, but they didn't buy him from Girona because he was actually on loan from, I'm going to mispronounce.
I think it was Troyes.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but he's on loan from them. Who are they? Another member of the City group? They are. So I don't know how big that club is, but this is where it all looks fishy to me. And again, this isn't a dig at City. It's more about me thinking that this small French team, Girona, these clubs need to be protected from this. And what I mean by that is every owner that buys a football club, within the remit and the finances of that owner and the connections they have, the aim should be to make that club the very best version of itself possible. Now, 25 million euros, which at the time was only 21 million pounds, you're only talking about the summer of 2024, 18 months ago. That was deemed by UEFA and FIFA as fair market value for a player who has subsequently flopped in the Premier League. Just for City to now turn around and say, if Spurs want to buy him, he's 70 million pounds. So I look at that, and again, I don't care about how you legally word this. And I know City fans will defend it because it connects to their football club, the same as some Chelsea fans will defend Chelsea when it comes to Strasbourg. But I'm not talking about this as a dig at your football club. I want you to think about the fans of those clubs. I don't care if these clubs have 10,000 supporters only around the world or 100 million supporters around the world. Though every single fan, every single club deserves the same amount of respect. And at the end of the day, you can take a player for 21 million pounds, he flops, and then you sell him for 70 million. How is that fair? How can you even justify that jump in market value, considering his stock has dropped, considering he's been absolutely awful at Man City? The issue is he should have gone. This is another way you partly fix it. You go, right, if you're going to buy between yourselves, there's a limit on how much you can sell that player for in the next 5 years. So, for instance, you buy a player off your parent company at 20 million and you say it's fair market value. No matter what happens, the maximum you can sell that player for is, I don't know, 10, 15% above what you paid for them. And any amounts over that goes to the original owner before that transaction took place. Because that's also part of it. Because if that small French club now, I assume they're quite small. I don't know how big. I'm going to look at it.
It was Troyes.
So they're not. They're in League 2. I don't know how big they are. I mean, their stadium's only got 20,000 capacity. They're not a big club. They're only founded in 1986. I'm older than them. The point is, imagine what 50 million pounds could do for a club like that. That could get them promotion and help them stay in a higher league. It shouldn't be City now, because again, I don't believe in net spend. Net spend is a oversimplification of a far more complex circumstance. But imagine they sell him to you guys now for 50 million. They're going to make somewhere at 70 million. They're going to make somewhere in the region of a 60 million pound profit on their trading accounts on him, which they can then invest in new players. And yet these sister clubs are getting no benefit from this. And when it comes to the Chelsea situation, which we'll get back to, it isn't fair on the Strasbourg fans. They know whenever the going starts to look good, they're going to be pillaged by Chelsea. So imagine I'm sitting in now as a United fan going, I don't see a bright future because I don't like our owners. Imagine having owners, well, some Chelsea fans think they don't have a bright future, but there's a knock-on effect here. This isn't right. Morally, this isn't right. And I want to just say this now to Chelsea fans. I'm not digging your club out, as in the history of Chelsea. City fans the same. But this isn't fair on Girona. This isn't fair on Troyes. This isn't fair on Strasbourg. This, for me, is fundamentally wrong. And we must think about their fans as much as ourselves. Yeah, it's well off key for me.
But what's really, really interesting is I'm pretty sure that Girona had a sell-on clause in the deal when City signed Savinho. So essentially, City profit, Girona profit massively. So whoever Pep Guardiola's brother, I can't remember what his name is now, Guardiola, whatever his first name is the current director of football, or was the current director of football of Girona. That's where it's even more fishy. How can you have your brother working for your sister club and you're just feeding each other players? The same with Chelsea and Strasbourg, and RB Leipzig and RB Salzburg. It's very, very, very dodgy. And if you're a fan of one of those clubs who is, excuse me, constantly feeding players to a parent club, excuse me, having a coughing fit over here, I'd be furious. Absolutely furious. If Tottenham got bought out by, let's say Bayern Munich, for instance, and all of our players are being tunneled, well, they pretty much are anyway, but all being tunneled towards Bayern Munich, you'd be furious. You'd be absolutely furious. Every time you see a rising star come through, an academy graduate who's really, really good, gets the fans on the edge of their seats, and all of a sudden, every 5 minutes, a transfer window comes around, that player's going, this player's going.
And even then, a lot of these smaller clubs in France, they have to rely on selling their players for big money to push forward. Yeah. They actually do. So they have to get maximum value. I wonder what the compensation Chelsea are going to pay to Liam Rosenior is here. Because I would imagine if Man United, I would imagine if Tottenham, I'd imagine if City wanted Liam Rosenior, you're talking anywhere between 10 to 20 million pound in compensation to buy him out that contract. Are Chelsea paying Strasbourg that compensation? Who knows? And for me, it's not a dig. In terms of Chelsea, look, I think they've got some fantastic. Oh, by the way, just announced we're recording, Strasbourg agreed deal in principle to appoint Gary O'Neill as the new head coach.
Gary O'Neill.
Gary O'Neill's going to Strasbourg. Yeah.
You watch their fans will be rioting. Not only that, they're currently 7th in Ligue 1. They've got a Coupe de France game coming up, and then they've got Metz, Lille, and then they've got PSG. So they've got 3 toughish games coming up. If he doesn't hit the ground running, plus I don't even know if he speaks French. So he's got to learn the language. He's got to learn the culture.
No disrespect. When it comes to most English people, I just doubt they speak French. Exactly. Or any other language. We're terrible. We're terrible for it.
That is a disastrous appointment. He's not.
Oh, yeah. It may not go. I mean, listen, I do mean this wholeheartedly to Chelsea fans. I hope this works out for you. But if Liam Rosenior only lasts a few months, Gary O'Neill only lasts a few months, what next? Look, moving on from this, big injury problems at Man City at the moment. It looks like it could be months out for Guardiola with a fracture to his leg. Ruben Diaz has been confirmed as out for the next 6 weeks or so. There's a lot of problems there right now. I actually read a tweet earlier on today, which I did quote tweet saying the irony of Man City fans complaining about injuries after they told Arsenal for 3 years injuries are no excuse to not be able to win the league. So we've got to maintain that energy. But Mamouche obviously currently at AFCON. Doku just come back. Savinho out. Oscar Bob out. Kovacic out. It says here that obviously Ait Nouri is at the AFCON. Nico O'Reilly is on his last legs. According to a lot of reports coming out of Man City, he's like red zoned at the minute. Guardiola out, Stones out, Diaz out. Ake on his last legs, it says here as well. So a lot of injury concerns at the moment at Man City.
I mean, well, they can't complain, can they? For weeks, for months, pretty much this entire season, they've told Arsenal fans, you've got the biggest and best squad for a reason. Injuries aren't an excuse. If that's the case, then you can't complain that Diaz and Vardy are out injured. What I will say is Kuzanov and Ake is nowhere near a good enough centre-back partnership to see you through the next 4 to 6 to 7 weeks. John Stones, I mean, he may be back in a few days, but again, it's not the John Stones of recent years, is it? Let's be honest. Ain't Nouri and Marmoush are both international duty with Algeria and Morocco. Other centre backs they've got currently it's Ake and Kuzanov. I believe they will go and sign not Vardio. I believe they'll go and sign Gahey from Palace. If they don't sign anyone, Arsenal will run away with it. I actually think as well Brighton will get something off City tomorrow. I actually think Brighton will get a draw because they are a bit of a bogey team. They've already beaten City this season. I'm pretty sure, did they beat them home away last year?
They might have done. They are
a bit of a bogey team for City. And a lot of City fans aren't happy with, recent performances, drawing against Sunderland, drawing against Chelsea, leaving it late to beat Forest. They've got Brighton, Newcastle away, which isn't easy. You lot away, which isn't easy. Who knows? Solskjaer could rally the troops and you beat them. I believe they will have to sign 2 centre-backs. Gahey is an absolute must. It wouldn't surprise me if they went in for a Van der Ven. It genuinely wouldn't surprise me. They need a big marquee centre back.
Well, this is the thing with Man City, right? I want to make sure I reiterate this. I do think I am not someone that says injuries are no excuse. It's not about no excuse. What it shows when you get injuries and you can't cope is that your squad needs improvement. Sometimes though, you just have a mass load of injuries. What would be interesting to see is how many people blame Pep for the injuries. Because I'm just trying to speak about energy here. When Arsenal get an injury, we have to look at the training, the substitutions, the overuse of players. City get injuries. Why are the same conversations not happening? Now, Guardiola's was clearly a impact injury, but so was Odegaard's this season as an example. These things happen. Why are those conversations not going on? Secondly, injuries are not an excuse, but they are an issue. They weaken your team. They demonstrate how good or bad your recruitment has been. That being said, this Man City squad currently, and has had 613 million pounds spent on it in the last 3 seasons. If, for instance, they spend the money on Semenyo and they do go and get Gahey, it's 550 million in the last 12 months alone. So for me, if they're not good enough, then it's not having a good enough squad is a reason why you couldn't beat Arsenal. Arsenal's squad was better than you. It's not an excuse, but it shows the recruitment hasn't been good enough. But it equally goes to show that there are maybe some wider problems developing at Man City because their recruitment in the previous years of the Calvin Phillipses and I know he's doing okay at right back, but the Mateus Nunes, he was a midfielder and it hasn't worked. And their midfield, you can play through it. Nearly every single team they've played this season creates ample opportunities in games to score. And that isn't because they've got bad defenders per se. It's because the midfield is become easier to bypass. Part of that is systematic, but I also think a big element is they haven't bought well enough in the midfield. And Rodri, since the ACL injury, it just hasn't been near the level, and I don't blame him for that. But you saw it at the weekend. Rodri's back in the starting lineup. Chelsea on their knees with everything going on. Outside in the second half, how many times are they getting behind? 8, 9, 10 behind the midfield. 8, 9, 10 times. It was if Neto had a good game, I think City lose that match. If I'm being honest with you, based on if they'd have killed the game off in the first half, no, but in that second half, awful. So I look at this now, and they have to react in January. They have to go and buy. They have to go and spend, because if they try and cope through the next 6-7 weeks of football with just Kalashnikov and Ake at the back, they're done. They will just. And what I mean by they're done is this season they will drop too many points in that period. And Arsenal don't look like they're going to drop any points right now, to be honest with you. But they'll drop more points than Arsenal in that period. And suddenly then you're going to have a 10-point gap, 11-point gap going into the last 3 months of the season, 4 months of the season. And I'll be honest with you, I don't see Arsenal failing from there. I don't see Arsenal collapsing from that point. So this is the interesting bit. If they don't get Mark Gahey, depends how much money is available. I think if they've got the money to buy both, do it. But if they can't get Gahey, they've got to go and get another good centre back, a good centre back. They can't just go and drop 30 million on an average guy. They've already got average guys. But if it's going to take more than that and they don't quite have the room FFP wise, then they're going to have to drop the Semenyo deal, because a centre back right now, I think, is more important than buying Semenyo. Now, if they can get Gahey and Semenyo, amazing. I think they're both fantastic players. It's out there. But I also think Arsenal should be embracing this, because I was talking about it. I said it earlier. 60% of Arteta's entire spend in 6 years, Pepper's had spent on his squad in the last 12 months.
But
So if I'm a
doesn't suit
gooner,
the narrative, though. That doesn't suit
oh
the
yeah,
narrative.
yeah. It suits my narrative. It suits my narrative because it's the truth. I look at it, I see a lot of gooners panicking. Oh my God, look what they're spending. I'd embrace it and go, okay, we're up for the challenge. Because imagine you win that league title. You can look at it and go, yes, we were on our knees. We were broken as a club 6 years ago. Arteta and co came in and rebuilt us to a point over a 2.5 year, 3 year period where we could start competing again. But by the time they started competing, you were up against one of England and Europe's greatest ever teams, and you narrowly missed out twice. Then, when you overtook them, they threw £500 million at a squad full of treble winners, four-peat winners, multiple title winners. They're only a handful of points behind you, too. They've got the greatest manager of a generation. They threw £500 million at catching you, and you held them off. That, for me, if I was an Arsenal fan, is not the narrative, is the truth that I would push. And yes, Arsenal spent a lot of money. They've spent 960 million pound building this squad over a 6 year period. Some of those players have subsequently since been sold and moved on, but I don't care about that. That's what they've spent to get to this point under Mikel Arteta, under their club side rebuild. And that's fair. And there's a lot of pressure on Arsenal to win after spending the better part of £1 billion. And there should be pressure on Arsenal to win. But what I find interesting is this narrative that it's okay for City not to win because of an injury problem and because they've won before, it's okay not to win. No. When Sir Alex Ferguson was in his pomp, when Wenger was in his pomp, when Jose was in his pomp, it didn't matter what other clubs did. It didn't matter what you won 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. If you didn't win that league, it was absolute objective failure. And for me, if Pep and City go 2 years without winning the league, by the way, after throwing £500 million at a squad, yes, they've lost some players since then, but £500 million at a squad that had already won the league and were absolute definitive champions, it's a massive failure, huge failure.
Like I said, it doesn't suit the narrative, does it? The narrative will be Manchester City lost out in the league to injuries, but because they've done it in recent years, it doesn't matter. I honestly believe if they don't sign a top centre-back this month, I can see them dropping a lot of points. Mark my words as well. You can clip this, you can do whatever you want with this. February the 1st, we will beat City. We always pull some rabbit out of the hat. That weekend, I think Arsenal have got to play. I think they've got an easy-ish. Well, there's not really an easy game in the Premier League, but they've got quite an easy game, I believe, that week. They play Leeds United away, which isn't an easy game, but you'd expect Arsenal to go and win there. And they play before City. If we beat City and they don't sign a centre-back, and all these results happen that I think will happen, I think they drop against Brighton, come March, April, when they do actually play each other, they could be 8, 9, 10 points behind. And what's the narrative going to be then? Injuries cost us the league. Our score wasn't as good as Arsenal's. All their narratives are just complete bollocks. It's fine when it's going your way, but it's going against you. It's everyone else's fault. And that's what I don't subscribe to this. Arsenal bought the league and all that. Man City have done nearly 600 million in 15 months. Plus whatever they're going to do this month.
At the end of the day, I just look at this stuff. I just look at this stuff from the sort of perspective that I get there's a different dynamic of pressure on Arsenal to win, in the sense of if Arteta doesn't, after 900 million spent and being the best team in the league, you have to question his future. I don't think Pep's future gets questioned by not winning. But in terms of this season, going 2 years without winning, I want to give you a concept of how much they've spent. Even if you add, I run this through the Bank of England's inflation calendar last night. Even if you inflate Sir Alex Ferguson's spending from 1992 until 2013, if you run it through the value of that money from 2017 when Pep arrived until now, 2016 when Pep arrived until now, if you run it through that period, Fergie spent about 1.8 billion. He spent 669 million in 20 years. But we know that money in football has gone up. So I run it through the inflation calculator. It still comes in the last 12 months, Pep is going to spend 30% of what Fergie spent in 20 years in 12 months.
That's
30%.
just obscene.
It is obscene. And by the way, I've got no problem with them spending it. The problem I have is that they spend that kind of money. Plus, let us not forget, they are spending the better part of £470 million a year on salary. They are spending money that we've never seen spent before across the board, okay? Barring those first 4 or 5 years of Roman. And by the way, if Chelsea didn't win the league back then, they got massively ridiculed because of the volumes they were spending. The reason I'm so angry at Man United in the last decade for being failures, of course, it's because we haven't won the league, but it's because we spent as much as Man City did. So a lot of, your club spent this and didn't win, yeah. And it's why we're a fucking laughing stock, and it's why we're a joke. And I'm not putting City in that category if they don't win. So let's not get this twisted. But Man United being crap and overspending and being shit and going backwards is not a defense of Man City if they drop £500 million, which means their absolute cost on players, excluding agent fees, in the last 12 months is going to come in at £1 billion to not win the league after a £1 billion investment on top of multiple winners and the greatest manager of all time in their eyes is failure. And it must be criticised. And the one bit that I don't see happening from the media is enough focus on this. They would do it if it was Fergie. They would do it if it was Jose. They would do it if it was Wenger. They would do it if it... I mean, Slot's getting more. Slot's getting more stick for being champions, dropping 450 million than Pep might get. They're going 2 years without winning and spending even more than him. And yet, for whatever reason, and I know he's won in the past, and again, no one's expecting you to take away from his legacy, but there we go. You look at Arsenal now, though, they are 6 points clear. They seem to have clicked into another gear again now in terms of how they're playing.
Yeah, they were really, really good against Bournemouth. Showed character from going a goal down. I'm looking at their games they've got coming up. I think they beat Liverpool quite comfortably. They've been really good at home this year. They destroyed us. They destroyed Bayern Munich. They destroyed Aston Villa. The only team that's gone to the Emirates and got something this season is Man City. The way Liverpool are playing, I don't see them getting anything, struggling to beat Wolves, struggling to beat us, drawing with Fulham and Leeds. I think Arsenal win comfortably. And then after that, I believe they've got a Champions League game after that. Yeah, they have. They've got, they've got FA Cup against Portsmouth. They'll heavily rotate. And then they've got Chelsea in the League Cup. And I think it was The Athletic, or it might have been the Daily Mail that come out and said that Chelsea's priority right now, the League Cup is the least of their priorities. They're more focused on getting back into the top four and progressing into the Champions League. And if that's the case and they field a weaker team, I expect Arsenal to go to the bridge and get something, which then puts them in a really strong position for the return leg. But in the next month, Arsenal have got to play Inter Milan, Manchester United, Chelsea and Liverpool. Their fixtures aren't easy, but the way they're playing, you'd expect them to win majority of the games.
But they have Man United and Liverpool at home. And this is why I look at them. They're still marginal favourites. The next 5-6 weeks, I might move to clear favourites, depending on these results. But they have, if you look at a lot of Arsenal's games against the tougher teams, the vast majority are at home. Until you get to Man City in April. But if City don't buy the players, if they don't get a centre-back, if they don't get a centre-back, I think the April game will become a bit of a damp squib. I don't actually think it will be as important as people are making out, because Arsenal could have a 10-point gap by then, meaning they could lose it, but there's still 7 points to go. So yeah, it's an interesting next few weeks for Arsenal. I think they beat Liverpool as well. I don't know if they'll batter them. Liverpool will be up for the game, but I'm going to go with a 2-0 Arsenal win against Liverpool. I think over 2 legs, I think they'll beat City. I think they'll beat Chelsea, sorry.
I reckon they'll win by 3 or 4 goals.
I reckon it'll be 3 or 4-1 over 2 legs. I think it'll be tight at the bridge, maybe 1-1, maybe 2-1 to Arsenal. But I think at the Emirates, I think it'll be a different story. Based on Chelsea saying they're not going to... If Chelsea go full squad, my mind will change. I'm only basing that on what Chelsea have said, which is not a priority, which tells me they might have a few big hitters on the bench, but it tells me they're going to start with more of their fringe. And I don't. Arsenal will rotate, but I think Arsenal are going to really try and win that trophy. I almost feel like Arsenal might try and win the League Cup more than the FA Cup this year, because they can win it in March. And it's a case of, I think winning that League Cup would just remove... It just gets rid of all the conversation of they don't win trophies. It gets rid of that. And especially if I think they've got to gamble a little bit, Arsenal, in that game and go, Chelsea might announce a weaker team. Let's make sure we go with a fairly strong team and beat them. Because what you don't want to do is Chelsea go weak and you go weak and Chelsea's weak team beats your team. Because if you go out to this Chelsea team at this moment, it just gives fuel to the fire that you're going to collapse in the league. So I do think, look, I think they've got to take the League Cup really seriously from now. Really, really seriously. Try and win it, because I think they're the best team left in it. Try and get that trophy. It takes a huge burden and pressure off of Arteta's shoulders. And I think also it injects a bit of winning mentality, a bit more winning mentality into this squad. I think they can go into Champions League and league games. Of course, those two competitions are gargantuan in comparison, but they know they can get over the line. And suddenly that's 2 trophies for Mikel Arteta, then aiming to get a 3rd or a 4th within the course of that season. Then you're suddenly moving into a different realm of manager. Suddenly you're looking at a guy that by the end of this season could have 2 or 3 major trophies to his name in his first 6 years of management, which is a difficult thing to do. But equally, just as his team is peaking, who knows what he wins in the next 3 or 4 years. So I would take that really seriously if I was Mikel Arteta.
Well, do you know what? It's what all the top managers in the Premier League, Jose, Ferguson, Guardiola, that's their first trophy they've won. A lot of the managers love winning the League Cup because it builds a foundation for success. And I think what you said about timing is absolutely spot on. The FA Cup final is around May, which is when the Premier League final running is. The Champions League final is. The semi-final is. The final of the Europa League. So a lot of these teams want to kind of... I'd actually agree with what you're saying. I think Arsenal would rather win it, because if they can get the taste for silverware come February, come March, that final run in between March and May, when you've got like 4 or 5 games, 5 or 6 games in April, 3 or 4 games in May, semi-finals coming at you left, right and centre. If you've already got the taste for silverware, you're much more likely to go on. That was my argument with Spurs. Once we won a Europa League, in theory now, we should start taking trophies a little bit more seriously, because we've actually been there, seen it and done it. And then fast forward, we got knocked out of the League Cup. But that's a story for another day. But yeah, I do think Arsenal win that League Cup. I actually think Newcastle will be in the final again as well. Their record, Eddie Howe's record in that trophy, he's lost 1, I think his last 18 games in it, which was against you in the final.
Yeah, they're very strong in that. They're very strong in it. I mean, again, with City, with the defence they've got, it could go that way. An Arsenal-Newcastle final, against City, it's different, because obviously beating Pep. I kind of want the Newcastle-Arsenal final. I think it's a different build-up. I really wanted a Chelsea-Arsenal final. That was what I wanted. I just thought that would be because obviously Chelsea having not won a domestic trophy for getting on for a decade now. And I think that there's a lot of desperate, and for it to be the final, I think it was 28, it might be 2018. So yeah, sorry, 8 years, but with the better part of a decade is what I mean. 8 years since they've won a domestic trophy.
Jesus.
Obviously, they've won Champions League, Europa League, World Club Cup twice, conference. They've won a lot of European trophies in that period, but they haven't won an FA Cup, League Cup, or a league title since 2018.
They haven't won a League Cup since 2015.
It's been a long time. They've lost a lot of finals as well. And that's, I think, the bugbear. A lot of final defeats as well. So yeah, it'd been a great final, but there we go. Listen, mate, always a pleasure to sit and speak football. I want to thank all of our viewers. Please like and share and subscribe and get that all done for us. That would be amazing. But until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we're going to see you all again soon. Thank you.